And here we are, live. I'm not sure how many people are going to make it today. If anyone's not going to make it, that's fine. Just doing it as a live stream format just to see if it's a little easier on my comp. So that's why we're going to try this as an experiment. I thought everyone else rather just do it purely through Google Hangouts and not hang out with anybody. Today I wanted to talk about liminal spaces. And the reason why I chose these two is because I feel that they're very much married together. The two topics play well off of each other, kind of bring into our minds both the liminal spaces themselves as well as the folklore of that liminal space, or perhaps created. I believe it goes both ways. Heard space. Trying to get to my notes here. Here we are. Liminal space, from the Latin word meaning threshold, place of entering or beginning, a space between what was and what will be. Actually, a place of transformation. Can be the dusk and dawn and twilight, definitely. People consider that a liminal space and time. And so the way I was first introduced, Rita, to, which, hello, Rita. I'm sorry, I was on a ramble. But to this topic was actually Tumblr. There are a lot of posts about liminal spaces, specifically like malls right before they close, abandoned buildings. But I personally find a lot of liminal spaces in nature where I live. In the woods especially, but you can also find pockets of liminal spaces or parks that have been abandoned and not maintained by the county. Little nooks, roads that were at one time something. They were later reclaimed by nature, but there's still this in-between feeling. I'm not supposed to be here, but there's no reason I shouldn't be here. This weekend and encountered one such natural liminal space. Yes, cemeteries. Yes, Rita, that brings me right to what I was going to talk about, because we were going to from my childhood that I remembered very vividly. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find the cemetery on this adventure. The memory I had of it was across from my cousin's home in Port Austin. Her stepfather still lived there, but I didn't stop to say hello. I just went straight side road near their house and followed it where I saw a cemetery, but it wasn't the cemetery I was looking for. Because the cemetery we found oh yeah, visiting cemeteries at night. I have not done that in a long, long time. At least not one that was out in the boonies. One was definitely out in the boonies, but there was a private, and I won't say the name of the family because I would be disrespectful. And as soon as we found out it wasn't the one we were looking for, we paid our respects and we left. Top of a hill, and there were forests behind it, which was very similar to the one I remembered in my memory. And mind, this is like 10, 12 more years ago. And I remembered my cousins taking me to this place, particularly my cousin Kelsey, who sadly I've lost touch with. We don't talk, but as the middleman, not because we hate each other or had an argument or anything. We've just grown up and grown apart. So we go to this top of the hill looking for it, but we decide to explore the local area because it's definitely in that area. But I didn't remember such a steep hill. I remembered a much smaller hill nearby. We decided, okay, we'll go explore it. Expected it to be highly overgrown of ferns and nettles and just all the new growth. Even in my memory, when I had gone there as a child, it was summer, so everything was really thick and we had to wear our jeans and our boots because otherwise our whole legs would be cut up. Hello, Chris. Lovely to see you. I'm at the live stream this morning. Thank you both for answering questions. It was an incredible chat. But yes, so we go hiking through the woods, my husband and I, to find this little scant memory of this abandoned cemetery. And at the time, it was not maintained. I remember us looking at all the gravestones as girls, and there were no after 1912. Abandoned for at least that long. No one had maintained the graves. Now that I'm older, I would have tried to at least the names. But as a child, you know, I was there because it was spooky and possibly haunted, and I was in search of an adventure. But I started taking into account more of, you know, these are someone's remains. I should pay dues, you know, at the very least, read the names to honor the people who are interred there. Grand Rapids, where I lived. Yes, I do have some from Grand Rapids, but I'm not sure where they're packed. Rita had asked if I had ever taken gravestone rubbings, and I have. I lived in Grand Rapids. We were very close to the Fulton from that area. And we would walk through, and I have quite a few Mason, because at the time when I lived there, I was very intrigued about the Masons and secret organizations, cults, the whole shebang. I was trying to research everything that was considered taboo where I grew up. Actually, on this walk, my husband and I did not find the gravestones we were looking for. Trying to use his sensitivity to find the graveyard, which, and because I'm a baby when it comes to reading spirit and understanding what our message is, what's mind clutter and all of that, well, he just kick-started working through it right now, where he doesn't want to be afraid anymore, because for a long time he was afraid of what he saw. Yeah, I actually have no Masonic members of my family. We have family friends that are Masonic, but no, we don't have anyone in the Masons. Although my husband's coworkers are trying really hard to get him to join the Masons, and I'm trying really hard to get him to join the Masons so I can figure out at least the base work of what it's all about. Because I'm terribly curious even now that I'm older. We didn't find this great cemetery, excuse me, not say graveyard, because growing up they were all graveyards. That's what everybody called them, and now I know there's a difference. Didn't find it, which was disappointing, but what we did find was my husband kept being pulled in this one direction, and what we found, and anyway, what we found was a grove of wild crabapple trees, which aren't uncommon on the side of the county we were on. We were between Port Austin and Port Hope. Huron County knows where that is, but for my own sake, of crabapple trees. But the ones we found were very, very old, and some of them struck by a good long time ago. You know, all the ash was gone. It was just dead tree left behind. About that, we live on a main road, so you'll hear, with the windows open, you'll hear a lot of sirens and such. Drove, and we stepped through, and we got to the middle of it. And in the very middle, all of these tree branches were interlaced over one another. I didn't have a camera. This is a very spontaneous trip. And all of the leaves were starting to bud and really thread that entire canopy together. Kind of, we were talking about this cemetery. And then when we got to the middle of the trees, we both went silent. And we just stayed that way for 4 or 5 minutes. And finally, my husband says, "Can we just stay here for a while? I want to stay here. I want to stay in this space. I want to enjoy the peacefulness." And one moment. So we wanted to stay in that moment. And I said, okay, for a while. And we ended up staying there for almost a half hour. And it was the longest period of silence that I have ever sat through. I can't help it. My dad's side of the family, all talkers. My mom's side of the family, talkers. So it was kind of a hard sit for me. Respect how he wanted to enjoy that space. There in that half hour, I felt like, one, that we weren't alone in any capacity, which was strange because you didn't even hear birds in this grove. It was that kind of quiet. Felt slightly dizzy. I'm not gonna lie. These spells come and go, but this was a very like vertigo level of dizzy that I had decided to sit down on some tree roots. And maybe that's why I felt dizzy. I don't know. As I said, I'm kind of new to the whole energy, spirit, that whole sphere of it. So we were very much like a natural tree cathedral. That's what it felt like. And I do plan to go back before the undergrowth gets super thick because I want to see under again, and I want to share that with you guys and take pictures for my own personal like for paintings and such because it was such a striking visual as well as a striking atmosphere. But eventually my husband, after going through a few cigarettes, "I'm good to go now. We can go now." And I said, okay, we'll go. And our liminal space adventure. We did go to a beach as well, and I'll have a separate video kind of talking about that a little bit. I believe it was Olive. She had asked, or the Olive, the Windy City Witch. Excuse me, Olive. I'm sorry, darling. She had asked if we had ever found any hagstones along the lakeshore, and I was thinking to myself, no, but we did find them at the opening of the Pinnebug River when I was younger. There, and I found beach glass, and well, my husband found it for me, and I went through everything at the end of the walk and decided what we were going to keep and what we were gonna the process. But yeah, so that didn't feel as much of a liminal space because I'm there all the time. But that's still a very strong natural place because the Pinnebog River starts near where my parents live, my grandmother's house, and then, you know, snakes through the rest of the county until it opens up into the lake in Port Crescent State Park. So I feel a lot of energy there, but it's an energy that everyone traverses. Like there are always people coming and going at that mouth of the river, mostly because it's a great fishing spot, not going to lie, that's what most people go there for. But also because it really does kind of bring everything together. And there goes my coaster. So that I don't consider quite a liminal space. What I do consider a liminal space, speaking of my grandmother's house, there is a burnt out, basically. It appears to have been from a small house into local folklore because it's right along the Pinnebog River. You walk through some woods and you can find the foundation. The foundation was built of stone. Now, the folklore surrounding this place, by my grandparents, my grandma and my grandpa on separate occasions. The story is that a little old woman lived out in that cottage. She lived by herself because she was a widow, because of course she was. It was, I believe, late fall, which just makes this whole thing that much more spooky, I suppose. But around late fall, she had set the fire, in the fireplace. But it was very old, dried, cracked wood, specifically box elder wood, because that stuff is a bitch to burn. It's not like burning. It is not one that you want to throw onto a campfire unless you know what you're doing, because it will pop. And allegedly, this is what happened, and it caught fire to the rug. House down. Now, I had grown up with this story, and actually, one moment, I'm going to grab some. Now, I hope that the glare is not too strong on this, and this is Baby Bry. Briar Lynn, before Briar Lynn had that name, is right at graduation, so 2008. It's almost 10 years old. It was for my senior photos. I'm gonna check Google so I make sure I'm not blinding you guys. Foundation that you see right here, burnt out house. I knew from the moment I heard that there was such a thing as that I wanted to take my senior photos here. And the most to me. This place has so many fond memories of childhood. Oh, but take a photo there. And I'm gonna stop showing Baby Brad's face. Much longer hair back then. Did not have the sides shaved down, and when my hair was wet, it was like down to here. As soon as it would dry, it was like all up here. Yeah. That house means a whole lot to me because the foundation there is still there. I would like to say it is still there, still relatively untouched, despite all the times my cousins, including Kelsey, who I mentioned earlier, and I would play around there. We would have stick fights and pick black caps and all sorts of things down by this river. What I remember most of all was my grandfather is a huge practical jokester, and he is also kind of an asshole. Like, his sense of humor is very schoolyard bully, I'm not gonna lie. Doesn't bother me, but my poor cousin Kelsey, she was down there just poking around because Grandpa had told her that if you stay around there by yourself and hear the old woman scream, And me, I'm like, I'm not going out there because I knew it was a setup. I saw it coming a mile away. But my cousin, fiery redhead. Oh, and hello, Barb. My grandfather followed her down there because he had it in his head that he was going to give her the scare of her life. He's poking around down there, and he lives there. He knows how to walk quietly in a way that nothing's going to be disturbed. Yes. He follows her far enough where she can't see him and just screams at the top of his lungs, screams. And of course, my cousin comes running out of those woods. Like, she beat him home before he did. And she's crying and telling my grandmother all this. As soon as my grandfather walks in the door, yelling at him, Donald! His name is Don. When she's mad at him, she calls him Donald. Donald Paul Smith! There! And just ripped him a new one because my cousin's like inconsolable. He's also the one who ate bird berries, and when my other cousin, her older brother, Josh, told her, like, oh no, you're gonna die. You're gonna have poisoning. And you wanna know how you can tell when you're poisoned? You hold your hands together and your knuckles go white. I love you, Kelsey, but dang, girl. Dang, were you gullible when we were growing up. She'll never see this, that's fine. But when I was reflecting on that, another local folklore, a little bit bigger than just my family. Also a prank, but it was a prank that fooled quite a lot of people, and it's still talked about. Sorry, I need to uncover the microphone. One that I'm linking to is now on the chat. I will link it down below for those who watch later. This, let me see, name they gave them. Yep. There is the Little Blue Man of Huron County, specifically Elkton, which is on my way to work. Really, it was just a practical joke, but it kickstarted a whole lot of folk legends around here. Ones that aren't really talked about online, but if you get the right group of people together, people will talk about it. The man was actually a bunch of guys who they wanted to kind of have fun. It happened. Mars and like little green men were the topic of the day. It was the 1950s, I believe. I think it started after, I'm quite sure. I'm not looking at the article right now. To my folder when people ask me about curious stories about where I'm from. It was a laugh. And even the cops who eventually discovered who the little blue man was, they all gathered around and took pictures with this little alien from our own backyards. But it really scared people for quite a while because these teens, if not, that's okay. It was a group of gentlemen. We'll go with gentlemen. They were all, and they would watch the roads, and when a car was coming by, they would pop out of the corn wearing this huge elaborate costume collected from the ringleader's own garage. They had like the gas mask or the diver's helmet mask, and then they had like a big bulbous back, and just like basically all it was like overalls and gloves and stuff, but they spray painted it all this weird blue color, which sadly you can't see in the picture. But my mom remembers this story. She remembers it very well. Grandma and grandpa on that side, on the Crone side, would drive the back roads around Elkton because they wanted to see it. This was before it was discovered who was behind all this. To me, growing up, it sounded like a Scooby-Doo episode, you know. Jenkins. Oh, hello, my dear. I was hoping you'd make it. That people who normally don't get to watch the 2 streams that I've done because they're, you know, at the ass crack of midnight would get to enjoy this one. Turn out here, guys, because found the Christian God again. Happy that her life is going spiritual, but censor me and my dad right now, and we're both just really, really, grandma, like you've never till now. But that's neither here nor there. So we had the little blue man, but other folklore stories, such as of Huron County. The story you either hear is they're over by the Port Austin Lighthouse. Oh, well, best of luck and all the hope in the world, Olive, and many blessings to your, you know, week. I don't miss them. School. Oh my goodness, nursing school. You've got a lot on your plate. Thank you for coming by. Oh. There's always talk about the lights over the house, which is not in use. I need to emphasize that there are no lights. So as well as alien stories, you have ghost stories of the house. Stories of lights off of Caseville. Now my issue with this, the first issue, those are both like the most populated of the lakeshore where I live, and that also means there's a lot of people putting off fireworks. And on the firework, you might not even hear it. Aren't allowed to have, not allowed. Everybody bought them and back up here. Now we have our own fireworks stores and such that sell the big boom ones. But growing up, we didn't have those. Get very quiet ones. You would have people firing them off far enough down the lakeshore where you couldn't really hear, but they would generally launch them off over the water. On that, and the second, I don't know, that's happening to quite a few streams I'm noticing where the icon comes up. But my other problem is you can see lights from Canada across Lake Huron. Not always. Usually during the summer, the haze is a little too thick. You can see clear into Canada from where we live. So I figured you couldn't have them in where you live, but yeah. Can't have fireworks somewhere in the Midwest. You live close enough to a state where you can get your hands on some. My father has a story. Living with grandma and grandpa. His 2 siblings were home. Because he's a night owl like I am. And boom, and he looked out in like to the west. The sky was lit up like it was daylight. Just vibrant colors. He said there was a lot of pink and there was a lot of orange, and it was far beyond dusk. Morning. Boom, and he saw the sky light up. He goes running downstairs and he goes running out, and his dad, my grandfather, is standing out in the backyard, and they both just stare. And they watch as, like, they're looking for, you know, they're looking for a plume in the Cold War, and they were like, oh no. First thought that Russia had dropped a bomb. The USSR had dropped one. And So they go running, you know, they're both standing out there. Everybody else in the house is sound asleep. There's no kickback. There's nothing. It just goes from being really, really bright like daylight, slowly fading, and then pitch black again. And my dad's shaking, and he looks at my grandpa and he goes, "Hell was that?" And my grandpa's quiet for a moment. My dad's shoulder, and he says, "It's something that we're not going to talk about. I didn't see it. Neither one of us saw it. Now go back to bed." And my dad still can't explain what that was, but he had friends at school, and everybody was dead silent about it for about a month. And then one of his buddies, who actually stood up in his wedding, said, "Happened in the night sky, such and such day." My dad's like, "Oh yeah, I saw it." So hear whispers about it. It was something that they don't talk about to this day. Dad doesn't know what it is. I've never asked Grandpa what it is because I'm pretty damn sure he wouldn't tell me even if he knew. It's that, but there's also folklore. I remember there's one over by where another cousin of mine, Robin, lived. She lived closer to Cass City, so she was quite a ways out there. There was a bridge near where she lived, and she had grown up always being told by her grandparents and her mom and dad, go out there after 3 o'clock, the witching hour in the morning. A spirit would appear there, an old man spirit. It was weird because she said he would jump, but the bridge that he was over, it wasn't a very deep brook or anything at the time that we were alive. And it's supposedly that river was much deeper back in the day. And so the story was that this gentleman drowned himself. Story. Usually folklore around here comes down to either aliens, ghosts. A cemetery over by Verona, which I have not visited yet. It is on my list. This is going to be cemetery summer for Briar Lynn. There's a cemetery over by Verona, which is, and the story is, if you go out summer's night, new moon, that they specify the new moon because usually it's a full moon, right? It's a new moon. If you go out there, you will see stones with the blue light, long electric blue light. Oh, I believe I've heard of that, Olive, which says we have a Resurrection Mary by Aragon Ballroom. It's beautiful. I imagine you have a whole lot more stories than I do. Folklore and stories that get passed around in your city. Some, Grand Rapids has some. I didn't get to investigate as many as I wanted to because a lot of them are privately owned businesses now. And this separate video. I'm trying to think of other ones that I know right off the top of my head. There is also about near Grindstone, and as the name suggests, it was a place where they made grindstones, those big giant stones with like a hole in the middle. It is named after that. And there is over that way a story about a man who walks out into Eagle Bay. He takes a straight shot walk out into Eagle Bay and then he disappears. Story about that, I just know about the figure. In Port Hope Mill, right on the lake shore, it is now a park standing there because there was a huge fire and numerous workers passed away in this fire. It's said that sometimes you can hear their screams. The one that is not about spirits or aliens, a story about the dog man, the wolf man. They have a variant of it in the UP. If I ever make a video about that, I will try and have my husband in on that one because he went to school in the UP and he knows a lot more about that. Those of you who aren't from Michigan, is the Upper Peninsula. He has stories from up there. Own dog man, who is said to of the state lands. There's a state park. There's Port Crescent State Park. There's numerous ones, but most of those are on the lakeshore. This is an inland. And it's over by the petroglyphs, which is also run by Sleeper State Park, and my mom is there on occasion. There's Dog Man in those woods. And there's different stories about where the Dog Man originated, but more or less, as I always understood it, it's kind of a werewolf. Although instead of transforming by the light of a full moon, this is a gentleman who's been cursed by the devil himself. But he's not quite dog and he's not quite man. And there's different stories on how that came to be. One is said that he like called upon one of the angels. I wasn't raised Catholic, I was raised Calvinist. A lot of the archangels, I don't know them unless it's like Gabriel, Azrael. I know those ones, but I don't know. Barb is asking, do I see spirits? I personally, I can't say that I don't, but it's a new development in my life. Let's put it that way. Growing up, I did not see ghosts. I didn't believe in fairies. I didn't believe in any of it. With my Aquarius moon, maybe that has to do with just how I was brought up. Maybe it has something to do with profile, past life. It could be anything. But at the time, I did not believe in ghosts. I did not believe in spirits. But I loved the stories. I thought they were fantastic tales. As for this dog man, you know, I don't really quite believe in that kind of thing. Recently, and my poor mother has always seemed to, whenever she gets assigned to the petroglyphs, which are considered to be Native American in origin. I'm going to put that right there because some people want to say it was aliens, and I'm like, no. Like, we have historical records in front of us. Why can't we just accept that it's Native Americans? Why? Why does it always have to be aliens? Case, a lot of people right now are speaking that the people looking for Bigfoot at the petroglyphs. Small area. I think it's only got maybe 5 to 10 acres to its name. If Bigfoot is real, then that is not enough space for that creature. It's strange out there. Sorry, drink break. But those are just kind of the small folklore over the years. Say that we have any ghost ships. We do have a lot of wreckage off of Huron County into Lake Huron, for which we're named. No ghost ships, unfortunately. I always was bummed out as that by a kid because I grew up with my 6th grade science teacher. He actually used to hitchhike or stow away, that's the word, stow away on freighters in his younger days. That's how he got to Europe. Stow away, if they found you, you just worked until you got to whatever shore you were going to. And they didn't really give you any more trouble when he was growing up. So he was very passionate about freighters and and just all of that. So we were required, I'm not kidding you, we were required every single class period started with us either listening to the year 2525, stuck in my head, thank you, Mr. Santini, or the Fitzgerald. I'm not sure how familiar people are outside of Michigan with that tale, outside of the Great Lakes region, freighter that mysteriously capsized during a storm and was lost for a very long time. In any case, I was very big on learning about ghost ships after that. There are quite a few. I know Lake Michigan actually has its own version of the Bermuda Triangle, as it were. It's amazing what you can pick up and learn the longer you live somewhere. In Kentucky? Oh, I'm jealous. I'll have to find out where my Uncle Rick is from in Kentucky. I don't know the top of my head, but I've always wanted to visit. My husband has gotten to visit Kentucky all the way down into Tennessee. He's seen much more of the South than I have. And by the South, I mean south of, Michigan. Like, for me, that's South. Because I've never been further south than Washington, D.C. So for me, story on the ghost ship. Love ships. Part of where I live. Hmm? Oh. You keep saying, Barbara, are you seeing something that I'm not seeing? Because I'm attention to the videos. I'm gonna keep talking. If you guys do see something, you can tell me. I promise I won't be scared. They're going in the south. Oh, you put it up my way. Wonderful. Truck driver. Awesome. That's an awesome profession. Not enough credit given to truck drivers. My husband's step relatives, his aunt and uncle, are truck drivers. Or were. I don't know. They recently had, I guess right before Easter when we had all those high winds, brand new truck. It was only a year old. Off of the highway and thrown. And thank goodness neither one of them was severely hurt. But oh my gosh, can you imagine one of those big they are just getting picked up and carried off the highway? And they had a load too. It wasn't empty, Um, that just would be a lovely profession if you wanted to travel. But whew, long hours. Sorry. Tangent there. Oh, good. There's nothing here. All right. Well, I just wanted to ask because audio gets all screwed up or photographs get all screwed up. Still having that happen. Still seeing things that I'm not sure what they are or how to. Like, that's the part that really gets me. Like, if I could communicate at the level, that'd be great. But I don't really hear them so much as see them at the moment. See and feel. The hearing's not there yet. We're getting off topic, but those were pretty much the little bits of folklore I had for you all. And most of them, the whole point is, most of them take place in liminal spaces, spaces on the in-between. My whole apartment isn't one of those because the Mothman, Ohio and Kentucky line. Oh, okay. Oh, the Mothman in Ohio and Kentucky line. Oh, no. I know of the Mothman, the one that usually gets around. Is that the same one? Give me a chance to answer in a minute, because I know there's lag. Okay. I don't want this all to be dead space, so I'm sorry if I talk over you, Barb. But yeah, we're just going to get off topic for just a moment because the other night, and this spooked me. I'm very visually impaired. Maybe you guys can't quite tell. You don't see me like you see me on in a video which flattens everything, but I have very thick glasses. And so what really creeps me out with the whole scene part of it is because I have to wrestle with, okay, is it my bad eyes or is it actually something there? Talk about seeing spirit, it's because I've seen something so strongly that I can't say it's not this or this. You know, it has to be spirit. And I had this sinking feeling in my gut that something was watching, and it's like, okay, you know what though? I'm just gonna lay down, I'm gonna empty my mind out, and I'm just gonna fall asleep. Because I fall asleep fairly easy. I had cleared my mind, I was meditating on other things. And then I felt this urge to open my eyes. So I say, okay, fine. And the way I sleep on my side. So I had a clear, it's fuzzy, but I had nothing obscuring my vision except for my vision being bad. But that wouldn't have affected this. It wasn't a figure standing there. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't anything of that kind. Full of light. And I'm going to approximate how big it was because it had to be pretty big for me to see it without my glasses on. It wasn't like a big, like, so it was about this big. And I stare at it for a good long while because at first it's just a light. See color. And it's a white in the middle, green ring around it, like a bright, vivid green. Let me see if I've got anything comparable. Yeah, we'll go with this vivid green, and it was this kind of vivid green right here, like this kind of green. I had a ring of yellow similar to this, and it wasn't based on this because I hadn't been looking at my book. Referring to the book, I've been trying to do all of my readings intuitively. That is my project, if you will, my magical project, is not relying on text, off of intuition. But it was that bright, bright green, and it was that bright, bright yellow on the outer ring. That for a good long minute. And I had opened my eyes. It have that happen when I open my eyes, especially not a pitch black room. So our room is dark because my husband has blackout curtains in all of the rooms. I am not. So it was pitch black in there, and this light did not cast light onto the walls. It did not, it was not coming from the peephole that leads out into the hallway, because that would have hit the hall wall on the back of the hall. And I hate how that rhymes, but we're going with it. I knew it wasn't either of those things. It wasn't from a car, curtains. It was just a bright, and I stared at it for a full minute. I even brought out my phone because this light wasn't moving and I was going to take a picture of it. That it was a full minute had ticked. I tried to take a picture, the flash went off, and the little ball of light was gone. phone didn't get the image. And I just went to sleep after that because I'm like, I can't do anything about it, you know. And it wasn't trying to hurt me. It was just there, and it was bright, and it was glaring. Explanation for it, because I was up too long for it to be sleep paralysis, and I could move over from my phone. So I've had of sleep paralysis. I don't have them anymore. It was caused by a medication I was taking at the time. And thank goodness we figured that out, because that is a horrifying experience. I'm going to say that all sleep paralysis experiences medication, that's not what I'm saying at all. That was just my situation. That's what I went through. And I knew that this was not the same thing. An experience. And I still have no explanation for it. Is that a sweet bless your heart, or oh, it's kind of what I went through the other night, and it was in a way of like not a gut reaction, like this is going to hurt me, but in like the heart really tense. I'm scared because I don't understand what's happening. So yeah, that's been my only really strong, like 100%, no doubt in my mind what happened. Okay. I don't know. Maybe it was the spirit guide checking on me. Maybe it was like popping in, because there was a lot that went on before I made this video. It was really great. I had both Saturday and Sunday off. I don't know how I lucked out and had that. But Saturday we had spent with TJ's mother, and then we had the rest of the day to ourselves. And then Sunday we had the morning to ourselves, but the afternoon was spent to visit TJ's gran. She passed away last year around Easter. Up there, he gave her a couple of her favorite cigarettes. When did it happen to me? It happened to me on Friday night. Husband wasn't home. My girlfriend's been away to Canada. She's coming home today. So when I saw the ball of light, it was on a Friday. I don't know if there was any things going on. I have no idea. I didn't really check. But it was around midnight. I believe it was 12:30-ish. Or yeah, it was 12:30 because I had gone to bed a little bit early, because usually I go to bed at 1:30. So yeah, that happened to me on Friday, and I'm thinking to my husband about it, because again, he's doing his own thing that he's trying to work out, and I don't want to muddle his I don't want to call it training, but I don't want to muddle what he's doing with what's happening to me. There's been a whole lot happening between us, though, where it's kind of like realities are kind of crossing, not in a bad way, but just in a way I didn't expect. And kind of throwing my whole brain for a loop. To it here. Why not? I've got another at least half hour to spend. Gone down to Grand Rapids a couple weeks ago. Oh, it's my spirit guide. Oh, I hope so, Barb. I really do. Because that would be wonderful if it was a spirit guide. Put my heart at ease, I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to hurt me, but just seeing it was kind of intense, you know? Weeks ago, we had gone on a car trip with our friend to Grand Rapids to visit my dear waifu. And on the way back, and I hadn't told this story online yet, so on the way back, we're in the car, we're driving along, it's night, it was after 9 or 10, because we were getting home late. We were just outside of Flint, and there wasn't a whole lot of traffic. Saturday night, there usually isn't out on the highway. It was quiet. You know, a couple cars on the opposite side going in the opposite direction. The window. And we're singing to Panic at the Disco. And I see on my side, I'm like, I saw a flash of them. I saw them like spin, like a car had spun around in a circle. And donut, you know, spun off the road. And so I tense up really fast and I look behind me and there's nothing. Because I turned, you know, I told TJ to turn it down because I was scared there had been a crash, but there was nothing. What happened was we had the defroster on because it was cold. The defroster, cold air. I said, oh, never mind, it's nothing. And I'm just trying to convince myself that it's nothing because it spun out, whether it was real or spirit, you know, whether it happened then or spirit. About it. You know, I wasn't going to have everybody stop on the side of the freeway so I could investigate this. I saw something, but it's nothing. It's nothing. And then our friend in the back seat, who's also sensitive, I'm in the car with 2 sensitives. Oh no, that was something. Don't worry about it. They're just dead now. I'm like, what? My friend, much as I love her, I've been friends with her for almost 2 decades now. Sometimes she was real blunt about these things. Like, oh no, they're dead now. It's okay. Like, they've been dead for a while. Don't worry about it. Okay. But that brought us onto a totally different subject. Because she's like, I thought, you know, since we're on the subject, and you can believe me or you can think I'm full of shit. Easy if you want. But Myriad's been talking to me. Myriad's been visiting me. If you haven't watched my other art videos, if you haven't heard me talk about my creative projects, Myriad is not an actual person. A construct of my mind. He is a fictional character that I created. I created him around the same time that she and I became friends, but I never spoke to her about it. I don't like talking about my personal creative projects with friends. I just never have. My waifu has to pull teeth to get me to talk about what I'm working on. Hello, Pickles. Can you let go of that, please? This is why I didn't want you up here, my darling. You knock things over. Say hello. One moment. Goodness, where did you throw him? You threw an entire fossil, my baby. Come on. There he is, all the way up there. We'll find it in a moment. We'll put it back in a moment. Sorry about that. Grabbed a real firm hold of you guys. Yes, I picked. Oh, one moment. I gotta get a rag. We had a slight spill. Yes, you made a slight mess, didn't you? Oh, sorry. I got a picture of my rear. Oh. There we go. Oh, cat. In any case, So Marriott says hi. And I'm like, okay. Because I'm just like, this before, because she insists that he has come to her and talked to her. I don't know on that. I'm not especially sensitive. I'm working on it, but I do not call myself that. Both my husband and this friend call themselves sensitives. So that's the term I'm using. I myself am not sensitive. I don't get like really super strong messages most of the time. If I do get a message, it's a gut feeling. It's not like somebody talking in my ear. We both experience. It sounds like someone talking in their ear. When they see spirit, it's very physical. It's very there. I have that gift to that extent. Not yet. Maybe one day I'll get there. And I always preface not yet because I do believe it can be learned, and I do believe it's a muscle that I agree with Arwen 100% on that. But when she said Marriott's been talking to me, I was trying to brush it off. I wasn't expecting her to go on. And she goes, he has a problem with, but it feels like he's angered a lot of people. He's made a whole group of people angry and he's running. I don't know why this is connected, but he's scared of catacombs. He doesn't like catacombs. Holding myself, we're in my seat going, okay, now, if I say anything, is that just eating this? Or, you know, is it going to get me more information to help confirm this? Because that is the only time I've ever brought up Marriott to her was once. Said that it sounded like my character Marriott because she had had a figure pop up in the middle of her living room. Just the way she described him, very pointed ears, fairy. She said his skin was very like an earthy reddish brown, that there were red hair, like dark red hair. And she described him as wearing green and gold. Those are the two colors that I associate with Marriott very strongly. I usually draw him in such things because so when she had described the spirit to me, I hadn't told her the name at this time. Until she had finished describing him, and I said, that sounds a lot like Marriott, but that makes no sense to me. Because he is a fictional character in my mind. Like, maybe that's what she was picking up on, but why would he just pop up in the middle of her living room? Me. Then on this car trip, she's telling me about how he's angered so many people, how he's afraid of the catacombs, for all things she brought up because my husband brought up stuff later into all of this. And then she said, he's always laughing and he's always smiling and he just wants you to know that he's there when you need him. And when you don't, you know, he's still there at a moment's notice. So it was like he's always there if you need him, even when you don't think you need him. If you call upon him, he will be there. Friday night, that's what really kind of also, I think, added to the, because what if she's right? I feel about that yet. When you said it's a spirit guide, when I described that orb, I was thinking, if it's Marriott, please just see me with the stake and bury me on the ground because I'm done. I don't know if I could handle that because that brings so many other things into question that I don't want to face right now. I want to get lost between the reality and the unreality mess of things. And I know that's really far out there. I've been trying not to talk about it on here because I feel like that's like in a way that I don't know how to call it witchcraft because I don't know if it's part of that. No. The second part of that whole story is my husband with his spirit guides, both from his past and from around environment. That's the word. From his past and the environment around him. He's always had a spirit he calls Ghost Girlfriend, and I'm going to give her her own video, talk about it here at length, but one of his spirit guides that he has worked with since he was a young boy in Pontiac, he's been trying to figure out how to protect himself while not being afraid. And she's been a part of that process. He's like, okay, well, what are the first steps I need to take to not be afraid? Popped up R1921, I think. And he's like, what does that mean? And she just repeated it. And like, okay. He was born Catholic, but he never attended services. Catholic services he has been to. His mother's second wedding and Grand's funeral. Those are the two that he has ever sat in. But when we were first dating, I was very much a part of my local Presbyterian church. How that turns out. But in any case, I have no hate for the church. I'm putting that out there right now. He was very accustomed to going to church with me because it was something I was heavily involved in, and he wanted to be supportive about it. But he's like, 1912, that sounds like a Bible verse. So when he came home from work that night, he cracked open, because that's usually when he and I do our meditation. That we didn't talk to each other about that until he told me this story. But we both seem to get more messages while we're at work, probably because we're focused. So it's very rare that we're focused, but when we're really focused, like that's when the messages tend to come in the most. So he comes home, cracks open the Bible, and all these, all the books of the Bible, and he settles on Revelations, and he's like, you want me to read? Okay. Page number to get to Revelations. 1912 in the particular NIV that we have in our house, because sometimes it is incredibly useful to this day. So he takes it off the shelf and he opens it up and he's flipping through the pages. 1921. And I don't have the scripture in front of me, but the description he read aloud, like a character of mine. Again, same story as Marriott. As soon as I read that, he's like, I wasn't thinking the horseman. I was thinking immediately of your character. It's described like white robes, blood on the, like along the hemline, basically like splattered blood all up the legs and everything. Describes riding astride a horse, which is very much tied to this character, is blazing. Now, my husband knows this character. He's one of the few people that I would tell about these things. And he said, all I could think, he's like, I couldn't even think that this is scripture. He's like, all I could think of was your character always dresses in white, how he has the silver white hair, like his eyes ablaze, because this character, and although his eyes are not, most people, humans, albinism, do not have the red eyes. That is very, very rare. Usually they have a milky blue eye. Think when we hear the word albino or we hear the word albinism, we think of the bright red, and that's exactly what he had in mind. Reading the blazing eyes. I'm just putting that all out there. And he said, what was that character's name? And I said, well, his name is Ismet Yilmaz. But in the story, he has people refer to him as the Soluk Chevalier. I'm mispronouncing that. I am not Turkish myself. I have been trying to learn the language. It has been with me even longer. I thought I made it up when I was in junior high. I thought I made up the name Soluk Chevalier. I swore up and down that I made it up when I was a kid, and I stick with that. So my brain is just exploding because as soon as I said that, my husband, who has very olive toned skin, an ashen pale. I don't want to scare you, but that name, as soon as you said it, I heard a chorus in the back of my head as if thousands of people were saying his name. Point where my brain just could not anymore. Please stop telling me this right now. Said you can talk to me when it comes up again. If it comes up again, you can talk to me even an hour from now about it. To ask you to stop because that's really scary. So yeah, that's what's been happening in my life outside of, you know, checking out cemeteries and digging into folklore, because that's helping ground me right now. What's going on? I'm like, oh no, everything's real and unreal all at the same time. No, I want to find out where this thread is. Aw, yeah. There's nothing on it. I don't know what to make of that. I have never had that happen. Ever. Like that. Get this up. It's trying, guys. It's trying. I don't know. I'm sorry. What you guys see, apparently. Okay, there it is. There, I have video now. A whole lot of sound going on or whatnot, but thing. And now it's showing me nothing again. I have no idea. It's short here, guys, because my computer's having a freak out. Ugh. Shivers and not good things. Call it here for now. I don't know what else I can say to top the fact that my whole computer just shut off for no reason. Over 30% battery. No wetness from that little spill, because the spill was way behind it. It wasn't on the computer. I think we're going to call this a cut. I have even more to think about now, which is scary. But I hope you guys all have a good night, and I hope you be good to each other.